Deep inside a forest in Ireland, data from trail cameras began revealing a phenomenon that was difficult to explain. Gray squirrel sightings dropped noticeably month after month, then continued declining for years. There were no traps, no poison, and no eradication campaign of any kind. When researchers examined the evidence more closely, they discovered signs of another animal appearing with increasing frequency. Tracks along stream banks, scratches on tree trunks, and a few seconds of dark, blurry footage suggested that pine martens had quietly returned to the forest. The two trends were unfolding almost simultaneously. Pine martens were appearing more often, while gray squirrels were becoming increasingly scarce. And now, people are asking one question. Could the quiet return of the pine marten be responsible for the clear decline of gray squirrel populations, a species that had frustrated human control efforts for more than a century? The story began in 1876, when the first gray squirrels were brought from North America to England and released on an estate in Cheshire. At the time, they were regarded as exotic animals meant to decorate private gardens. No one imagined that this seemingly harmless decision would mark the beginning of an invasion lasting more than a century. From small patches of woodland, gray squirrels followed tree lines and ecological corridors to expand their range. They reproduced quickly, adapted well, and were especially efficient at exploiting available food. By the end of the 20th century, they had occupied most suitable habitats across the United Kingdom, while native red squirrels had been pushed into remote parts of Scotland, northern England, and a handful of isolated areas in Ireland. Competition was not the only threat. Gray squirrels also carried squirrelpox virus, which had little apparent effect on them. For red squirrels, however, the disease could become fatal within only a few weeks. To prevent disaster, people established buffer zones, set traps, culled gray squirrels, and provided supplemental food for red squirrels. These measures worked only as long as funding and manpower remained available. As soon as a program ended, the gray squirrels returned. The real problem had never been limited to the invasive species itself. Gray squirrels had entered forests from which the predator that had maintained the ecological balance for thousands of years had disappeared. While studying the distribution of gray squirrels in Irish forests, Dr. Emma Sheehy repeatedly encountered a result she found difficult to believe. In places where there were no traps, poisons, or control programs, gray squirrel numbers were still falling sharply. In those same areas, trail cameras were recording pine martens more and more frequently. She examined other possible explanations one by one, including declining food supplies, differences in forest structure, and localized disease outbreaks. Yet even after these potential influences were ruled out, the pattern remained unchanged. Research published in 2018 showed that where pine martens were more abundant, gray squirrels were less common, and red squirrels were beginning to recover. What makes the situation unusual is that pine martens are capable of hunting both squirrel species. Red squirrels, however, have lived alongside this predator for thousands of years. They are smaller, lighter, more agile in the upper canopy, and better able to recognize and respond to danger. Gray squirrels evolved in North America, are heavier, spend more time feeding on the ground, and appear to have little awareness of the threat posed by pine martens. Pine martens do not need to wipe out every gray squirrel. Attacking nests, catching young squirrels, and reducing reproduction below the level required to sustain the population may be enough to cause a gradual collapse. What do you think? Should people actively reintroduce pine martens to control gray squirrels, Or should we simply protect them and allow nature to restore the balance on its own? I would really like to hear your answer. Leave a comment below and share your opinion. This transformation did not begin with a large-scale reintroduction project. Pine martens had been legally protected in Ireland under the Wildlife Act of 1976 and in Britain since 1981. Once hunting and persecution began to decline, the small surviving populations hidden in remote woodlands slowly started to recover. The recovery happened so gradually that almost no one noticed it at first. Pine martens are mainly active at night, rarely allow themselves to be seen by people, and often leave behind nothing more than a few blurry seconds of trail camera footage, footprints pressed into mud, or claw marks on a tree trunk. Once their numbers crossed a certain threshold, however, their influence began spreading throughout the ecosystem. Gray squirrels reproduced less successfully, nests were raided more often, and local populations gradually lost the ability to replace themselves. No control crews were required, no traps had to be maintained, and no continuing operational budget was needed. Pine martens were simply returning to the ecological role they had performed in these forests for thousands of years. In the Irish woodlands with the highest pine marten densities, what happened next was even more remarkable. Red squirrels did more than survive. They began returning to places from which they had previously disappeared. As gray squirrel numbers declined, competition for food and territory also weakened, giving red squirrels the opportunity to breed, disperse, and reclaim their former forests. Similar signs have also been recorded in Scotland, although the results vary because each region has a different forest structure and population history. In Wales, a pine marten reintroduction program began in 2015, and the early evidence appears to be moving in the same direction. This does not mean the approach will work everywhere. Pine martens need large, connected forests, a varied prey base, and strong legal protection. In cities, suburban landscapes, or woodlands fragmented by intensive agriculture, the same ecological process is far less likely to succeed. Pine martens cannot eliminate squirrelpox virus entirely, either. What they can do is reduce the number of gray squirrels carrying the disease, which lowers the risk of transmission. Their recovery is therefore an important part of the solution, but it cannot replace every other conservation measure. For decades, people believed that saving red squirrels required the endless capture and killing of gray squirrels. That model demanded money, labor, and an intervention that could never be allowed to stop. The moment a program ended, years of progress could quickly be undone. The recovery of the pine marten has revealed a completely different path. It does not require a new technology or an elaborate control system. The essential step is simply to restore the missing link that humans once removed from the forest. Pine martens do not know that they are protecting red squirrels. They are merely hunting the prey that is easier for them to catch. Yet that natural behavior reduces gray squirrel numbers, opens up habitat, and gives red squirrels a chance to return. Today, cameras in Irish forests still capture the shadows of pine martens moving through the darkness. Gray squirrels appear less frequently, while the tracks of red squirrels are once again showing up beneath the trees. After more than 150 years, people have finally realized that the solution never truly disappeared. It had remained alive in the forest all along, waiting for us to stop destroying it. If you found this story interesting, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.